Let me read to you a passage from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 7, verses 11 to 17. It's the Gospel for the 8th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year C. St. Luke writes, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Do not weep." Then he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." That's from Luke chapter 7, verse 11 to 17. It suggests thoughts about mercy. It is normal in the history of nations and cultures for a society to have its religion. During the last few centuries, there has been the anomaly in Western culture of a growing rejection of religion from the public life of society. This is due to its embrace of secularism. But normally, religion develops with a society as an aspect of its life. One of the most striking historical events was the rise of the Christian religion within the Roman Empire. It was not indigenous to the Roman Empire, and it was rejected by the leaders of the small, out-of-the-way nation where it began, the chosen people of Israel. From the first, it was the object of persecution. It underwent this persecution for 3 centuries, a valiant witness to Christ, before being accepted as the official religion of the empire. Whether this official state position was a good thing for it in the long run is a further question. But the point here is that its pathway was one of persecution, and its divine founder made it clear that this would indeed be the destiny of the community of his disciples. The image Jesus Christ set before the infant church as the path to life and glory was that of the cross. Many have looked on the emergence of the Christian religion in classical Roman society as an iconic parable to illustrate this, and have seen its apparent success amid long persecution as a perennial reminder of the power of divine grace. It was not the fruit of alms and temporal means. Trust was not to be placed in chariots, but in God. Now this singular pattern was about to be repeated, for Christianity triumphed, as we might put it, at the threshold of the crumbling of its great persecutor, the Empire of Rome. Indeed, Newman in some of his writings saw the successful barbarian attack on the Roman Empire as a judgment of God on its long persecution of the religion of Jesus Christ. In any case, the hordes of barbarians attacked and attacked. They pillaged and plundered across the Western Empire and on the great city of Rome itself. The Dark Ages, as they are called, had begun and were destined to continue for at least 3 centuries. The Catholic Church entered a new period of grave persecution and immense difficulty coming from the Vandals, the Huns, the Germanic tribes, the Norsemen. But what happened? the Church's intrepid witness kept up, as exemplified in her saints. And they took it to their persecutors and won the day. Christian Europe was gradually born. We may take it as signalled with the coronation of Charlemagne by the Pope in the year 800. But it was amid persecution, this gradual success. What is the point being made here? It is that whatever be the age, we must expect contradiction, difficulty, seeming overwhelming odds, in a word, the cross. There will be periods of apparent peace and rest, but before it is noticed, very dark clouds will have filled the sky. Constantine proclaimed the Christian religion, but very soon there was Arius, and the whole of the 4th century was filled with intense battles against absolute heresy as to the person of Jesus Christ. There will be difficulties from within and from without. This is to be the pattern, and it is not of God's making but of fallen man's. Yes, in a sense the Church triumphed over the hordes of the Dark Ages and brought about Christian Europe. We may say that the dominance of Pope Innocent III was an image of this success, so-called success, of the medieval period. But it too contained immense and appalling difficulties. The difficulties of the papacy during the 10th century are almost incredible, and more was to come from within and from without. Eastern Orthodoxy cleaved from Western Catholicism, and Islam began to pound at Christendom. The terrible breakup of Western Christianity arrived and was effected in the 16th century, and so the story goes on. In every age, the Church founded by Christ is called to be valiant in its individual members day by day, knowing full well that difficulty is not only present but ahead. The Church's children are called to be faithful to Jesus Christ in their lives and witness, knowing that the menacing of evil is not all that there is to the story of man. God is all-powerful and he is merciful. His power is shown in his mercy, and this is the real dynamic behind the phenomena of history. God's almighty and merciful providence embraces all, and glory follows the cross. As Pope Benedict XVI often pointed out, another anti-Christian dictatorship has arrived in the midst of so-called Christian societies that have to a fair extent lost their soul. It is the dictatorship of a secular relativism which rejects objective morality grounded in nature and fulfilled in revelation. That which is right is that which suits me and the majority. So we had a previously very Catholic country, Ireland, voting in a referendum no less to recognise same-sex marriage. As the Holy See's Secretary of State said at the time, that was a defeat for humanity. A great challenge lies ahead. It is to bear valiant witness to Christ amid persecution and difficulty. All this brings us to our gospel that I read earlier from Luke chapter 7, verse 11 to 17. The scene is of a funeral procession in which a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the town was with her. Things might look dead, or at least dying, and for those who see clearly the situation may be a cause of weeping and sorrow, but there is a great light ahead, and it is constituted by the presence of Jesus Christ. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Do not weep." Then he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Christ, our God and brother, may not do for us what he did then on that occasion, but if we resolve to bear witness to him, he will act with power and mercy when his time comes. He is the revelation of the divine mercy. So then, now I begin.